Bases dropped on another week of soccer down here. Soccer's morning show. John, hear you there. And it is a lot to talk about. We've got World Cup to talk about because of all of the stuff that happened in the overnight. And that'll be opening kickoff, brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee, coming up in just a little bit. We've got to talk about, I know, Ricky, it certainly did. We got to talk about Leagues Cup. We got to talk about Atlanta United. Atlanta United no longer in Leagues Cup. They did not make the knockout round with the PK loss to Cruz Azul over the weekend. So we'll get into that, get in your thoughts about that. And, once again, Turkish sourcing. We'll see what we've got going on. Jarrett has he's got his folks, he's got his search engines all squared away. So we've got another couple days left in the window, and we'll see what is going on there. We'll keep an eye on all of that stuff. Luke Winstel, it looks like, because of the late matches involving his Matildas, they were the late match in Australia. They were the last set of early morning matches. Remember, group stage finishes, Matchday 3s, they all finish them on equal time. So you're not laying everything out and sit there and going, okay, do we sit there? Do we sandbag this? Do we not do this? What do we need to do? Everybody started at the same time. So we'll keep an eye on that. And bam, it's not late for you. It was early morning for us. So catching up with Luke Winstel after the press conferences, which I think were taking their own sweet time. We'll catch up with Luke, it looks like, in hour number 2. And hopefully he will have made it back to the hotel, or he might be in his Uber, making his way back from the stadium back to the hotel. But we'll see what's on Luke's mind in hour number 2 after the press conferences. We'll go through group stages and all that stuff. We'll go into who has made it, who has not when it comes to Leagues Cup and Major League Soccer. And there's plenty of stuff going on. We've got early season friendlies for all the leagues overseas and folks calling out other folks who've just shown up on their teams and things like that. So there's plenty of chaos to talk about this morning. Literally, whatever's on your mind, drop it in the queue. We'll talk about it because we're probably talking about it all anyway. So whenever you want to drop it in the queue, whatever's on your mind. Morning, Abby. Saw you with the spike. I know that you were mentioning that you were a just like a placeholder, which is not true. So good morning to you as well. Morning, everybody who's on the line. Bam, it is 11 o'clock in the evening. So Bam is wrapping up his Monday night, hanging out with us as he always is after his match. And there we go. So opening kickoff brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com. There's your QR code for those of you watching on Twitch. Don't forget to use the code SoccerDownHere15. You get 15% off your purchase. Then they, in turn, take 10%, reinvest it into youth games, youth initiatives. Very, very cool stuff from our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. It's a World Cup question this morning. How many of you legitimately are keeping an eye on the morning matches? I mean, for East Coast time, how many of you have completely and totally blown your clock up and have been watching like the 3:30s and the 6s and things like that? How many of you have absolutely just blown stuff up? You don't care. You're taking PTO. And you're watching the 3:30 match, you're watching the 6 a.m. match. Well, 6 a.m. match isn't that bad. You're watching the 3:30 a.m. match. How many of you have completely blown your circadian rhythms and you're just like, I'm watching it, don't care when it is. I've seen practically every match there is to see. That's what I've been doing. I have not, because I'm 712 years old, need to be awake for this show, and can't afford to take a nap later, and I can't nap in the daytime, as you guys well know anyway. I want to know how many of you have blown your circadian rhythms up just to watch the Women's World Cup. And a tip of the hat to you for those of you who have. I'm just wondering how many of you have. Do you DVR it? Do you watch it later? Are you watching live at 3:30 in the morning? Do you get up early at like 5:45 to watch at 6? What have your viewing habits been so far? Fox and Universo, their numbers, obviously, they've been huge. No real surprise. I'd love to know, and I'm sure that they'll be more than happy to tell us after the group stage is over, what the actual numbers are for them when it comes to live viewing, replays, clicks, minutes, average minutes viewed, those kinds of things. They'll let us know every metric known to mankind. But I want to know from you this morning, before we get into Women's World Cup and just kind of go through things before, like I said, before Luke joins us in hour number 2. Live from Australia. What have you watched? What have you seen? Do you get up early? Do you not care about the early? Do you catch it later? Do you watch it on tape? Do you just watch the highlights? Do you watch the clips? What? Let me know. I traditionally am watching the clips to kind of catch up. I'll watch clips. I'm not going to watch like the comment show that one of the networks has with their folks around the round table, and they're just kind of, making sure that Melissa Ortiz doesn't cuss on the air, even though she did, which was funny. Considering the importance of the moment, I get it. I don't watch that show. I'm watching clips just to kind of get caught up in the morning to see what's been going on. I'll look at the scores. I'll see what's going on, all that kind of stuff. That's how I'm taking it in, unless it's like a 9p or something like that where it's a manageable hour, so I can get to bed at a reasonable hour. That's just how it is. Because, like I said, I'm 712 years old. I got to get my beauty sleep, and that means I've got to at least lay down for like 14 hours. How have you been consuming the tournament? That's what I want to know. We'll get into that and all the other things going on as we go. Scores from the overnight. You've got, and we'll go back probably over the weekend as well, just so everybody can kind of get reacclimated with how things are. Group A over the weekend, their match day 3 early in the morning. Switzerland, New Zealand. New Zealand is a home side, did not make the knockouts. Finished with 4 points, but they were behind Norway in goal difference because Norway put up 6 against the Philippines, 1 on the last match day, and hopscotched them. So it's Switzerland and Norway out of Group A that make their way through. Group B was decided this morning. And like I said, when Luke joins us in hour number 2, we'll get into this and obviously the deeper elements of all of this. We've talked about how completely and totally just crazy the situation is, and it's taken entirely too long to get any kind of resolution. And it also makes you wonder how much of this has been hanging over the head of the Canadian women's national team. In a game where they needed a result, they didn't get it. They got thumped. Absolutely thumped. Goal in the 9th, goal in the 39th. It was 2-0 at the break. Haley Rosso scored to put Australia on the board twice. Mary Fowler scores in the 58th, and then Steph Catley gets the penalty at 90 plus 4. 4-0 when Canada needed a result. So Canada does not make the knockouts. Your reigning Olympic champ is gone. Reigning Olympic champ, not making it. Nigeria, however, does. And if we get the chance this week in early times, we'll see if we can catch up with Brooke Evans again. It was great to catch up with her and Luke late last week as for the setup for all of this. So Ireland, Nigeria, goalless draw. Nigeria makes it to the knockouts. Australia wins the group. Nigeria finishes second. Canada and Ireland go home. That's Group B. Group C, once again, their last match day. They were the early matches this morning, and I mean early in the sense of they were the 3:30s here East Coast time. Japan did not give up a goal in group. Japan beat Spain 4-0. Spain finishes with 8 points. Japan and Spain are the ones that make it to the knockouts out of Group C. Zambia got a win, beating Costa Rica by the final of 3-1. So Zambia, great for Zambia to get a win. Goals in the third, a penalty in the 31st, and then again at 90 plus 3. So good for Zambia. Good for Zambia to get a win. So Japan and Spain, they go to the knockouts. So those are the 6 so far. Group D is tomorrow. China, England, Haiti, Denmark. And Serena Wiegmann naturally has been keeping very, very tight-lipped about Kira Walsh and her future. Wiegmann didn't say that she couldn't, didn't say that she could when it means to Kira Walsh playing again. Wiegmann, in her Matchday -1, said that England must adapt to play against China. They want to improve their passing in the final group game. Kira Walsh, remember, sustained the knee injury in the 1-0 win over Denmark. The FA said that Walsh did not have an ACL injury but has not given any further update. This is like what we get in the Stanley Cup final or the Stanley Cup playoffs, really. Lower body injury, upper body injury, probable, questionable. It is intentionally vague. Walsh did not travel to Adelaide. Serena Wiegmann says, we said that it's not an ACL. I can't give you any more information. We're only focusing on the game tomorrow. After that, we will continue. We have a strong enough team. Every game we want to be at our best. We know she's not available. We have a group of 23 now. So we have a group of 22. We have our solutions, and we'll show that. Wiegmann was asked whether Walsh, Leah Williamson, Beth Mead, Fran Kirby, Ellen White, this was when she really earns her keep. Quote, it's not nice to lose players. Duh. Firstly, for them, and secondly, for the team. But we're here to move on. It's not nice, but we have to adapt and find a way. We'll have 11 players on the pitch who think we can win the game. You want to talk coach speak. Serena Wiegmann is getting the coach speak down. She ain't letting nobody know nothing about nothing. Quoting The Guardian, England labored to 1-0 wins against Haiti and Denmark. Wiegmann said they've got to keep possession better. China, haven't scored against a European side, need at least 2 goals against England to reach the last 16. China captain Wang Shanshan said Team China over the past few years, partly owing to the pandemic, has not engaged with many friendly matches, especially with our European friends. The rhythm and fast pace is something we need to learn from our opponents to narrow the gap. So, bemoaning the lack of friendlies and wondering what the future is going to be. Kira Walsh not involved. So we'll see what happens. But once again, great work by the Copper Queens to get their 3-1 win over Costa Rica, so they advance. Haiti, Denmark is the other one. Right now, England, 6 points, leads the group. Denmark and China each with 3 points. Identical records, and I mean identical. 1 win, 1 loss, 1 goal for, 1 goal against. Welcome to tiebreakers. Head-to-head points, Denmark leads China 3-0. So that's where you are right now. Haiti, obviously, if they were to get a result, we'll get into juice boxes at the end of the show. Haiti and Denmark matches 39 and 40. Group E, and I know that's where a lot of folks are thinking. Portugal, U.S., Vietnam, Netherlands. U.S. and the Netherlands at 4 points, Portugal at 3. So Group E has its own little batch of crazy. And then Group F, Group G, and Group H are the second and the third. So that's where we are. But that's the biggest thing here. Bam says we need the USA to finish second in the group. Uh-huh. I see where this goes. Yeah, Bam is already trying to plot things out. Bam is plotting things out here, people. I see where Bam is going. But that's where we are. So like I said, we'll get into juice boxes. We'll get into gossip, rumor, and innuendo probably at 10:30 and beyond, just to kind of get everybody squared away with what's up with the rest of the day. And you've got friendlies and all this kind of stuff. So we'll get into that 10:30 and beyond, or from the point that we're done with Luke, hopefully when Luke gets settled in Australia, and then for the remainder of the show. So in a perfect world, here's the traffic for today. Us talking about Leagues Cup and Women's World Cup and Atlanta United until 10 o'clock. Luke Winstel joining us hopefully at 10 o'clock. So Luke can be in his hotel at midnight and discuss what's going on. So we'll see. And then we'll catch you up we'll plot the day for you after we're done with Luke from 10:30 and beyond and get you all through the gossip, rumor, and innuendo. So let's run through what you guys are thinking so far on the Twitters. Hutch, happy affiliate anniversary. Happy anniversary. Bam, who needs Sam Kerr? I'm on the Tillies. I mean, Sam Kerr, I swear, in the cutaways, and obviously, Sam's got the earphones in, or she's got the earphones in, and she's listening to whatever she's listening to. And she literally looked like she wanted to, have the laser vision. You could see the red lasers just shooting out of her eyes and trying to completely and totally just destroy her opponents with her sight. That's what it looked like watching Sam Kerr on the sidelines in this particular match. Ricky, you are correct. The last day of July did get here quick. And all that means is that we're that much closer to football season, American football season. I can tell you that from last week when the entire world merged. And you'll be getting into those conversations too. Will, 3 weeks without a match, shake things up. Okay, now, to that point, let me see if I can find what I was staring at and what Jarrett was staring at yesterday, as someone who has his all of his filters squared away. So I'm trying to find our friendly neighborhood. And the guy has a fan account, by the way, Yagi Sabunchuolu. He's got a fan account with his 956,500 followers. So as I scroll down into his information, and like I said, we are still learning Turkish sourcing. And, you've got a lot. I mean, Ante Rebic and Besiktas and all these other kinds of things. Mauro Icardi, Galatasaray, Mauro Icardi for like $10 million. Basakci here and Luka Milivojevic. Let's see. I'm trying to see if I can find Mauro and Wanda. You want to talk about soccer over there revisited? Mauro and Wanda. We're getting all that stuff, and apparently Mauro and Wanda have wandered into the Turkish league now. So, trying to see, where was it yesterday? So the guy's like a serial tweeter, and so, so we're looking at all of these guys, like I said, Sabunchuolu is 952,500 followers. But what does that lay itself into? Folks who claim to be soccer writers are having discussions about anyone and everyone that comes across. Not interested in this guy, interested in this guy. They're all retweeting the same information. Depending on who you're paying attention to. If I could spell certain folks, then we could get into all these kinds of discussions too. And you're looking at July 23rd. Okay, so And like I said, if Jarrett joins us this morning, he could have better information than I could. But there were rumblings yesterday of more talk on Lobjanidze, more talk on Rossi. So, once again, keep an eye on your sources. Keep an eye on your sources. Like I said, we're still learning Turkish sources, still hearing rumblings. But once again, since we don't know Tier A sourcing and where it's coming from, all these kinds of things, just take everything as the window closes, as it gets close to closing. This is a learning experience for all of us when it comes to Turkish sources, dudes, followers. Great, fine. You might have 950,000 followers, but does your information stick? We'll keep an eye on it. Keep an eye on it. So once again, we'll keep an eye on all that stuff. Bam says at least Atlanta scored more points than the Galaxy. Yeah, so all right, so let's get into Leagues Cup here a little bit. I know that you guys have been commenting on Leagues Cup in the Twitch pitch. We'll get through it and we'll get to it as we go. And it was an interesting evening. So here is how, as we're getting closer and closer to the end of the group stage, we have some folks who have made it in, some folks, we know about half of it. So here's what we know so far. Group stage, Red Bulls New England, exit East 4. Atletico San Luis did not get a point. They're gone. East 3. Atlas beat Toronto FC in Toronto yesterday. What did you think of that? For those of you who've seen it, what did you think of those birthday cake ice cream uniforms that Toronto trotted out yesterday? Atlas beats Toronto in Toronto yesterday, 1-0. Toronto exits. Atlas and NYC make it to the knockouts. East 2. Pumas wins the group after beating DC United yesterday. DC makes it. CF Montreal is gone after going 0-1 at home. East 1, Philadelphia put up big numbers. And in the decider between Querétaro and Tijuana, Querétaro advances with a win. Querétaro is the 2 out of the East 1. Philadelphia 1, East 1. South 4, Charlotte with a win over Necaxa. Big win, by the way. Had a Raul Godinho sighting in that match. Charlotte, 5 points. FC Dallas, 4 points. So FC Dallas is your 2 out of South 4. Charlotte's your 1. South 3, we know what happened. Cruz Azul and penalties over Atlanta. Cruz Azul advances. Atlanta goes out. Inter Miami won their first 2, both at home. So they're number 1 out of South 3. South 2 is complete. Orlando wins. Houston, 2nd. Santos Laguna goes home. South 1. Austin did not win a match in group. Lost both matches at home at Q2. Mazatlan and Juarez advance. Now, Central, we're waiting on those. Central, those we'll get into scheduling. Central has to be decided today. West 3 was decided last night. LA Galaxy had a 1-0 lead with about 15 to go, blew it, lost to Vancouver. Vancouver got the win. They finished 2nd in West 3. Leon finishes 1st. Leon and Vancouver go. West 2, Monterrey and RSL. Monterrey won both. RSL won 1. That's all you needed. Seattle had a 2-0 lead, blew it. Gave up 4 in a row. Seattle's out. West 1 was also decided late last night. Tigres with the win. Portland, 3 points. San Jose is out. And so we have the Centrals that are going to be decided today. Currently, America and the Crew, they advance. Just positioning is where we're going to determine America and Columbus because they play today. St. Louis, all caps, is out after losing their first 2. So America and Columbus leave Central 1. We don't know what the order is yet. Central 2, Minnesota, they advance. We just don't know positioning yet. Chicago and Puebla play today. And we'll figure out what happens there with Chicago and Puebla. Central, Cincinnati advances with a win and a draw in their first two. They're in the barn. So Kansas City and Chivas figure out who's going to be the second team out of Central 3. Cincinnati's in. They've clinched. They're the top. Central 4, Nashville's in with 3 points. Toluca and Colorado will decide what happens. Colorado, if for some reason they win, you get chaos and tiebreakers. Toluca, basically, if Toluca gets a point, they win Central 4. So that's where we are. And like I said, we'll get into juice boxes coming up in just a little bit. And it looks like, according to Ricky, LAFC gets Juarez. And we'll get into the brackets, too, from what we know. Great conversation with you guys back and forth. Yes, time does accelerate as a function of time. Will also everyone go on ESPN Plus, watch the HSV Schalke Bundesliga 2 match. It was drunk. Bam's clock has gone completely and totally flipped. David says he's getting up for the 6 a.m.s only. Tom, you're just like me. Well, I don't necessarily ignore my phone. Tom says he ignores his phone and watches when he gets up or later in the day. For me, if there's a match I want to watch, I'll have it on the room later on in the day because obviously there's work to do. So it'll be kind of like noise in the room later on. Yeah, Ricky, right there with you. Unlike college, can't do it anymore. And like I've told you guys before, I can't sleep in the daylight. So when I'm up, I'm up. And so therefore, as a function of that, that's when I end up watching the matches in full and keep an eye on all that stuff. David, tonight, napping from 9 to 1 when the kids sleep, watching it live. Yep. And like I said, we'll go back and forth. I'm going just through the timeline in order because some of you are talking Leagues Cup. Some of you are talking Atlanta United. Some of you are talking U.S. women's national team and World Cup. So like I said, we'll go all over the place. I'm just going in chronological order this morning. Abby, Saturday's game very disappointing. I want to rewatch to see the non-calls and the unevenness by the ref. And I think that that's something that we can get into in addition to everything else. Like I said, knowing the end result. And once again, that's not changing. And if you haven't had the chance, I would your requested reading of the day is Juanjo Purata's Instagram account. Go read that. Some heartfelt stuff from Air Force One. The 2 calls that I know everybody has stuck in their minds is the handball no call that occurred inside the box. And that one kind of set everything. What I want, and I know that this is a conversation that we have every once in a while. When it comes to center refs, just be even. Just be even in your calls. That's all I want. If you're not going to call anything, and that's just how you're going to be wired, that's great. Then make sure that you don't do that the entire time. You know? If you're not going to call anything, don't call anything. If you're going to call everything, call everything. If that means you're going to have a yellow card, whether it was deserved or not in the 6th minute, if you're going to call it tight, call it tight. If you're not going to call it tight, don't call it tight, but then don't try to overcorrect like you're skidding on a road and you're just kind of messing around a curve and you see a truck coming in the other lane. Then you overcorrect and you end up fishtailing all over the place. I know that the handball was definitely one that folks wanted to look at. No, and Hutch, and like I said, Hutch as the refs didn't cost, but once again, we can talk about how things would have been different if you had game state. We talk about this a lot and how game state can be different if calls don't occur as they should. And so, so we talk about game state a lot. And I think that it's part of the discussion, knowing the result was what it was. And so that's how it's a part of the equation, but it's not the entire discussion. To Ricky's point, performance wasn't good enough. Ref performance was also bad. So I think that we can have the discussion about both and understand, just have it as a part of the context of the match. So biggest thing is, like, you're wondering where calls are. Okay, you're going to let things slide. Was it a handball? Was it not? I thought it was. And then when you have, and Jarrett will probably agree here, is that when a Cruz Azul player basically steps on Yorgi Sakamakis' Achilles, Gigi goes down, and you don't even feel worthy of VAR. You don't even feel worthy of VAR in that situation. Then that was the other element of all of this. So it was on a couple of different things. And so getting updates from Luke Winstel here. Looks like the Nigeria presser is still going on. He says he might be later, so maybe 10:30 for Luke. So we might have to juggle things around a little bit. But you go to, if you kick it in your own hand, fine. If IFAB says that's rules, that's rule. But then let's go to the Yorgi Sakamakis. Basically, the player for Cruz Azul scraped the Achilles of Yorgi Sakamakis. And for VAR not even to go to VAR at all, not even, A, you missed the call. B, in the building, we get the replay. And literally you see the Cruz Azul player scrape Gigi's Achilles. Now I don't wear cleats on a regular basis, but I would imagine, for those of you that do, when play is not even really going on and you're just kind of standing there, Gigi's just kind of there, the Cruz Azul defender goes to Yorgi Sakamakis' Achilles and basically decides he's going to paintbrush it. Gigi goes down. In the building, you see what happens. And you don't get any kind of a card, period, much less, just a blatant display of just, you run out of angry adjectives at times. I mean, it was dirty. Like I said, I think Jared will back me up on that. It was a dirty play. You're just going to kind of go up to somebody and you're just going to paintbrush him with your cleat on the guy's Achilles. You could have done some serious damage to the player. But first off, A, no foul called. B, no VAR review, video assistant referee. No VAR review. And it was like you don't even get that call, even on VAR. Frankly, what does that say about VAR? What does that say about? And we could get into this with Bart next time that he is live in and around, and he's not 16 hours ahead of the rest of us. I think Bart had a round of food poisoning, by the way. But when you don't even go to a VAR review for something like that, when all of you who were in the building knew what happened, once again, the state of officials, it's something that you've got to work on. I don't know why for like a triple negative. I don't know why there wasn't a VAR review on the Yakamaki's paintbrushing. I really don't. I mean, that was nasty. That was a nasty play. No, I know, Michael. But the thing is, and I bring this up, Michael is, let me go to the bottom of the order here. Right. Complain about the reffing and nothing changes. But I think at the same time, Michael, I think that, and I mention this, and I mention this on purpose. I do this on purpose when it comes to officiating. I would much rather talk about it and expose it and continue to have it be a part of the discussion and the conversation than not, because if we don't talk about it, basically it's tacit acknowledgement of what it is and not wanting to do, it's just it's a level of acceptance, and I think it's unacceptable. And Hutch, that's the other question in all of this. And remember, you're also having Liga MX officials and MLS officials in this. But Hutch wants to know what investments MLS is making in officiating. I don't know if it's an MLS kind of a thing, even though they should. But the reason that we do reffing down here with Bart, the reason that we continue to discuss how game state can change if officials aren't making calls and officials aren't being consistent, I would much rather continue the discussion knowing that I'm not going to bang my head against a wall about it, even though that's kind of the feeling. But the way that I look at it, and like I said, and I might be, yelling into the void here about it, but I would much rather, when it comes to officials, and I know, Michael, it probably drives you crazy, and I apologize for that. The more we have it as a part of the discussion, the more we continue to make it part of the discussion. Because if we don't, then basically you're just sitting there saying, oh, there's nothing we can do about it. I would much rather talk about it and have it out there as a point of discussion, and the thought that we continue to acknowledge that things need to change, instead of just sitting there and acknowledging that this is what the officiating was and then have nothing happen about it. Because like I said, if you don't talk about something, it's just going to keep going. If you talk about something, then at least it's out there. At least it's out there to discuss. Basically, that's how I look at it. So, like I said, I apologize if I'm driving everybody crazy about it. But that's why we do reffing down here. And it's why we talk about these kinds of things. And we talk about game state, and we mention game state and how things can change and all of that stuff. I think at the very least, if you take the IFAB ruling from the handball in the box away, and the paintbrushing of Gigi, if you just take that moment in and of itself, I think Cruz Azul should have been playing with 10. And then things could change. But no whistle, no foul, no VAR review. Once again, that gets to the larger point of the discussion about needing training, about needing experienced officials, and about needing that next wave of officials, because of the ones that are retiring, the ones that we're used to seeing that are no longer a part of the discussion. Where do you go from here? That's the biggest thing in all of this. And so Michael, on the follow-up, it does drive him crazy because the reffing doesn't get better. And I think it goes to Hutch's point about investment. And so, all right. So, and Michael says it is what it is, and apparently the owners are happy with refereeing. I think, Wiley, with the speed that we were showing, I think that Cruz Azul was getting tired, or they were tired. I think that with the speed that we had on the bench, the chances were there. I think they could have been had, but you also need to be clinical in the first 45 as well. But Bam says when Messi gets hurt on a no-call foul, then the reffing will change. You might be right. But Michael, to your point, it does drive Michael crazy because the reffing doesn't get better. It is what it is, and apparently the owners are happy with the refereeing. Unfortunately, it's a monopoly. And it is, unless the owners themselves, unless the owners themselves will sit there and say, okay, we need to come up with a different refereeing organization, then that's what you're staring at here. Basically, you would need a different you would need a different group of officials, period. Literally, that's what you would need. You would need a different group of officials, period. Basically, it would almost be like the USFL and the XFL, but the thing is that they go back-to-back seasons anyway. There's no real competition. I'm trying to think of two leagues that do the same thing. Well, like maybe MLS and USL Championship, something like that. Well, I think, but once, yeah. And so to Michael's point, pro gets paid by someone. Yeah, they do. They get paid by the leagues themselves that are involved. But the problem is that you don't have, whoever pays their salaries, the leagues need to demand better. They really do. And especially what you see, I don't know how many of you have gone into. No, I don't think we're wasting time. We might be whistling Dixie, Michael, but I don't think we're wasting time. We might be whistling Dixie, which is fine. I don't know how to do the two-part harmony. I don't think it's a waste of time. I don't think it's a waste of time to have this discussion. I think that to have it out there as a part of the public consciousness, I think is still important. And to come up with solutions, even if they are within pro and it comes to better training and devoting resources to it, I think that it's an issue that needs to be discussed. And Jordan, I heard about this. We'll get into that in a second, just as a part of a broader element. Because I did see some discussion about an incident, but now that you guys are discussing that, I know that Abby put something in the timeline too. Okay, back to where I was. We've got to figure out how to devote resources to improving the larger picture. And if we solve it here and can get it up the timeline like we did the All-Star game, fantastic. Oh, David, gosh, when was it? It was in the second half. He was standing at the top of the 18, and it was when I was going to say when he went down, but he went down a couple times. Standing at the top of the 18, I think he was inside the D, and it was when they were heading to the supporters section, so second half. And he's standing in the D, and literally the Cruz Azul guy literally paintbrushed him. What I mean by that is he took his cleat and he just kind of raked across the Achilles, and Gigi goes down, and he looks up at the center ref, and the ref doesn't do anything about it. And in the building, you see what happened. No review. So I think that what we need to do is, at some point, like I said, I think the next reffing down here, and Michael, I think that if we bookmark this conversation, I think we can have this. But I think that we can bookmark this conversation. Next time we have reffing down here, we can talk about it and figure out how to devote resources to the situation. I would also say that, yes, this is also reinforced when you go and watch games in lower divisions. And the inconsistencies that are there, right now you have 1, 2, 3, you have 3 separate levels of American soccer competing right now. And that doesn't even get into USL League 2 and NPSL. We've got news on that coming up also. But you have all of these different levels, which require all of these different games, which require all of these different officiating crews. And we get caught in the catch-22 of how do you learn if you're not out there, and if you're not out there, how do you learn? You've got all these games right now, and you have all these officiating crews that need officials. You'll learn by doing that. You're going to have rough spots. I've been to some lower division games, and there are some rough officiating crews out there. But once again, you hope that they learn from that as they continue to grow in their officiating. So there you go. So let's bookmark that. I want to bookmark that conversation so we can have more on it later. All right. So there's also some stuff that has been put in the timeline. And like I said, I don't know the context of it because I didn't see it happen. But apparently Cruz Azul supporters tried to intercept the supporters march and tried to enter the supporters section. And Ricky, I know when this happened. Well, because they somehow got smoke bombs inside the bins, and now that the window it's an open air press box, I legitimately got smoke from the Cruz Azul supporters because it's right there with the press box is right there over that catty-cornered section in the 200s. Oh, yeah. Indoor building, you got smoke bombs. And so that was an interesting experience. Definitely an experience. And Hutch, I did not know, I didn't see, of course, since Brad is facing, his back is to me. I did not know that this happened with Brad and with lasers. So, did not know that. And so Parzival has a solution on the officiating. We'll get back to that in just a second. But I will also say this. The Cruz Azul supporters, they were very, very loud. Very, very loud. And there was a lot of blue in that building. But I did not know about the lasers. I did not know about the supporters section element. Did not know that. Okay, so, yeah, twice. Yeah, literally after they scored. It was after they scored the goal, and then I think after they won. Yeah, right. I was right above it. So nothing like seeing blue smoke just come straight into the press box. And Hutch, I did not know that it was on. Apparently they showed the lasers on Apple TV. I think that security's got to do a better job. Okay. So Parzival says it was during the PKs, which is why there was a random stop. Okay. By the second in round 2. Yeah. Abby, more Cruz Azul supporters than Atlanta United. Many people opted out of tickets. Well, and Michael Valverde, who thinks to themselves, I'm going to bring a laser to help my team. I've seen it a lot in Liga MX. I've seen it a lot in Liga MX where, and especially in the more high profile, the competition, laser pointers, they are prevalent. Laser pointers are prevalent. Oh my God, they're prevalent. And I mean, if you thought, now, I didn't now, I'm going to need, yes, stairs in AFCON. I did not, and so Hutch, help me out here since you saw it. Was it the small focused laser pointer? Yeah, well, no doubt. The Egypt-Senegal pens to make the World Cup, Will, no doubt. Especially everything that was focused on Mo Salah. Was it the small focused laser pointer, or was it the ones like Will saw in AFCON that just looked like a disco the disco dance floor exploded and it looked like it was taking up the entire person. Was it the small focused one? Was it the pen light? Or was it the big ones that just kind of take up all the space and basically take up the entire chest of the jersey? Do you remember that? Showing rather large. Okay, so Hutch says they were showing the blobs on. Okay, so they were, yeah. The big green blobs, those you see a lot. That you saw in Will's mentioning of Egypt and Senegal pens to make the World Cup. You had like dudes with the laser pointers, and they were that big around, and they're on the jerseys and everything. So it was the industrial strength ones. Okay. The focused green one you see, my guess it was wide due to the person being on the opposite side of the field. So, yeah, I mean, you're seeing the big honking laser light display. So, I think security, obviously, they've got to do a better job, because if you're letting smoke bombs and laser pointers in, but like I said, that happens. It happens a lot in Liga MX. Liga MX competitions, especially the more heated ones and the ones that decide more tournaments and things like that. Definitely the higher up in the more importance of the competition, the more you see the laser pointers and the more laser pointers you see. Yeah. Hutch says it'd have to be a hell of a beam to stay columnated. So, yeah. So those were the things that I did not know about the laser pointers. Did not know about the interruptions from the Cruz Azul fans, but I do know there was a lot of them. And they were very, very loud on a night when 17s could have you those of you who were there, you came in and you did what you guys always do in supporting Atlanta United, but I wish that there were more of you there. In a knockout game, in an elimination game, in a tournament, I wish that there were more of you there. Yeah, and this is another thing. This is something that's really getting on me here. Okay, and I'm glad, Will, you brought it up. Will, and also, how are the opponents always late to the field after half again? I don't know if it's there should be, and I've never been in the visitors' locker room at Mercedes-Benz, so I don't know. But there should be a clock in the locker room that gives you the countdown as to how long it takes to get from your locker room to the field. You know, Atlanta United, they come. It's right there at the door to the locker room. They come down the chute. I think it's the Delta Club, and they come straight out, and then they go. For the visitors go out the end zone. They go down into the hallway. They turn left, go about 20 yards, and then they're into their locker room. Hutch, basically, yeah. You either have rules or you don't. I'm waiting for the first official to realize this and understand, bruh, or whatever you want to use. Y'all don't, there's got to be a card in there somewhere. I'm just saying. Literally, there's got to be a card in there. There's got to be a card in there somewhere. If you are late, it is a card. And I don't care to whom. I mean, honestly, I would love for, and I doubt very seriously that this is logical or it could happen, but since the players in the 11 were late, every player that walks out late gets a yellow for delay a game. You get one. It's like Oprah in the Cars. You get a yellow, and you get a yellow, and you get a yellow, or you get a warning. How about that? Let's do that. Let's not give a yellow. You give it, to the keeper. I think they all – let's do this. Let's do this. And I think you've also come up with a solution for Leagues Cup and ticketing. And we'll get into that. Here's what you do. All 11 of you that are out there on the field, you get warnings. Coach gets a warning, or coach gets a yellow because he's the authority figure. Coach gets a yellow, and each of the 11 players that are out there to start that 45, you get warnings. You've gotten a warning for time wasting. One more thing. Basically, all the 11 come out that are out there. And I think that center ref should be right there at the entrance. Right there at the entrance of the runway. What you do, if you're center ref, you literally have all 11 of them when they come out. Don't have them come out one by one. Have them assemble as a group right there at the entrance, at the entranceway. And then if I'm center ref, I go like this. No more. Doesn't matter what it's about. That's your warning. Bam, I like your idea. The coach and the captain get yellows. Yeah. Yellow for time wasting. And then detention. So this is, I'm tired of it. You got to come up with something. Once again, it comes to the discipline of being a center ref and what's going on. That's what you're staring at. And the point about tickets, if it wasn't attached to the AmFam Cup, I think more people would have gone. Michael opted out. He had no desire to pay an extra $60 for AmFam preseason and Leagues Cup. So Michael said, Club Med is buy both AmFam and this, and he said no thanks. Therefore, he didn't attend. So that might be a solution that might be working their way forward. Will, seems like they're going to hike Everest, K2, and Denali just to get back to the pitch. Yeah, it's you go down the runway, you go out the exit, you turn left, it's 20 yards, and you go. So basically, it's like a 50-yard walk, however long that takes. Give yourself a minute ahead of time. Seems like they learned their lesson going into next year, hopefully. Bam says give the yellow to the keeper. Will says give it to the captain. Hutch says yellow and a fine. I think a fine would also be good. Alex, leaning toward it being something off with the clock in the visitors' locker room. Happened too many times this season now, even with a team from outside the league. David, even though the clock isn't running, yellow for time wasting is allowed. Therefore, we should give a yellow for time wasting. Bam says coach and captain gets yellow. Hutch, there could even be a 30-second warning bell like in the theater. Do it like the 2-minute thing. Like we hear in Australian rules football. You get the 2-minute horn or the 3-minute horn, Bam. I forget when it is. But you end up with a 2 or a 3-minute horn just to kind of warn you to get up, start walking off. And then when you hit zeros and warm-up's over, you get the big wah. That's what you need. David, coach, and the last 3 on the pitch get yellows. I think everybody should get yellows just because of the nature of the whole activity. But no, David, I get where you're coming from. Coach and last 3 get yellows. They're all technically lollygaggers to me. So I think they all should get what's going on. They all need to get the yellows for coming on late. And should start a timer on the watch as soon as the half starts. Yes, Hutch, right? I will not be late 100 times on the whiteboard. Yeah, 2 minutes. Thank you, Bam, the 2-minute horn. Since it is the beginning of hour number 2, he's in it. Now, are you in your hotel room or somebody else's hotel room, Luke?
This is my hotel room. I am finally back, John. Thank you for having me on.
No worries. I was getting a little concerned, but as you know, and as everybody else knows, sometimes press conferences they're not in the how do we say, they're not in the most timeliest of fashions. So we're kind of at the mercy of coaches. We're at the mercy of the organizers. It just kind of just absolutely, you got to sit there and wait, and then that's what happens. So now, what city are you in?
I'm in Brisbane, Australia, and I just finished a very long press conference with the Nigeria head coach, Coach Randy. There's some coaches that will say the minimum, and then there's Randy, and we call him first name because he's so casual with the reporters. And you ask him a question, and he'll just go on and tell you a story and talk about, coaching in NWSL and something about recruiting at Notre Dame. And then all of a sudden you get to another question, and 30 minutes have gone by the end of the presser.
Well, and obviously there's nothing wrong with that, but
no, it's incredible.
I mean, when you end up with great sound, how is Brooke surviving all of this stuff? That's the biggest question.
Well, that's Coach Randy's favorite reporter as far as I can tell. So, no, it's just so funny listening, and it's refreshing, really, with a lot of the coaches that we get. It's very minimal, or, I don't want to give much away, but a coach like Randy will maintain the fact that, his tactics and some stuff is private, but he'll talk a lot. And Brooke was, enjoying the press conference tonight. She's been writing on Nigeria. I think she's got something coming out very soon, discussing some of the, I guess from what I can say, discussing some of the things that make that team unique. So she's really focused in on some of that. And that is a very unique team right now. So I'm looking forward to what she puts out.
And Bam's like, you should have made the dash to Melbourne for the game.
I know. I was contemplating it, but on assignment tonight for Ireland, Nigeria, can't change that. So I had in the Tribune tonight, watching the game on the monitor, replays and everything. Then I have my phone on the Australia-Canada game and my computer on live stats for the Australia-Canada. And all of that happening at one time. I'm not sure I totally know what all went on, but I caught up with the action. Everything that needed to get done got done. Everything's filed. So it's another good night.
All right, so let's break it all down, because we talked about it a little bit in hour number one as to where things are. And it was my first question for everybody here this morning was, how many circadian rhythms are off? You just get up for the 3:30s, not worry about it, screw it, use a PTO, go to bed, go to work, whatever. Australia, Canada, since this is in your wheelhouse here, you get a goal in the 9th minute, and then Haley Rosso scores 30 minutes later. 9th and 39th, you're at the break, and it's 2-0. What was the vibe?
Well, the vibe was very funny for me because I happen to be in the seat closest in the Tribune to the Volunteers. And the Volunteers are, they're doing their jobs, but they've all got their phones out, and the ones that can't have their phones out are, hey, Luke or Mr. Reporter, I answer to both. And what's the score? What's going on? So I'm having to give updates, and then they're all cheering. So from that little sample of what I got from the vibe was that this was surprising, to beat an Olympic champion. That's not earth-shattering to hear. But it was refreshing because people that follow the Matildas, and especially some of these volunteers and people that are at all these practices and games, they know what the team can do. And this feels like the first time really since April that we've seen, back when they beat England 2-0 in the friendly in London. Since then, this is the first time that they said, wow, this team has played to the potential. It's played to the vision. It's played to what Tony's plan said they could be for hosting a home World Cup, head coach Tony Gustafsson. So that was the thing of, we knew they had it in them, and now it's finally, been realized in a game in the World Cup.
Mary Fowler scores in the 58th to make it 3-0, and then Steph Catley, after a VAR review, makes it 4-0 at 90 plus 4. And, obviously now with Australia, one of the home teams winning the group. In the other match, I know that we'll get into the broader picture of the group here in just a sec, but Nigeria, Ireland, goalless draw in Brisbane at Lang Park. And you're looking at Canada and the Republic of Ireland going home. So I guess that means that. So what does Taft do now? That's my next. What does Taft do now that Ireland is going home? How does this work? When your team doesn't make it into the knockouts, how do you get reassigned? Was there any kind of a guidepost about this?
There's a little something to it. We knew that out of our group, we've got 3 of us in Group B and then one reporter covering Brazil. So we felt like we had some good teams, but we knew somebody was going to end up being the odd person out, whether it's Australia doesn't advance, which almost felt likely for a second, or Ireland or Nigeria. So now Taft tonight went on to write in the Deadline Gamer. I think he'll have something to follow on Ireland of first Women's World Cup point, and talking about the progress they've made and the steps they're taking and being a top 25 nation in the FIFA ranking. So there's a little bit for him going forward, but there's also a little bit of, we've got the Germany-South Korea game in Brisbane, and Taft I believe it's Taft and I together will be covering the Germany side of that. So there's still some good stuff for Taft to look forward to in the group stage that we've got.
And Bam, I'm not going to repeat it for the audio version of the show, but Bam is lining up what Taft is now going to be doing for the remainder. So Bam, and by the way, Bam is still lobbying like nobody's business for you to come to Melbourne. He says he's got a bed for you there just in case. And he also says that HSPs are better than or greater than poutine, the halal snack pack. But Bam is laying it all out for you. And I'm not going to put in the timeline what he said that Taft is now up to, despite the it definitely is an and it would give us the explicit rating early in hour number 2 this morning. But
I heard we avoided that explicit rating last time, so
just a bit. I mean, I don't know if you did or not, but I mean, when we look at Australia, Nigeria, I mean, obviously it's a great win for the program for Nigeria to get to the knockouts themselves. Canada doesn't make it out of Group B.
Yeah.
They go home. Your reigning Olympic champ goes home, and it makes you wonder how much of all of the stuff, and that's the word I'm going to use, all of the ish that they've had to deal with labor disagreements and tentative agreements and all this stuff hanging over them. I wonder how much of it caught up to them here in match day 3.
The thing that we hear, and this is not anything crazy in a press conference, we hear once we get into group stage and teams land in their city, we hear a lot of, we're just focused on football. And I understand like questioning, like, were you really, like, what was going on? You just had the agreement in the middle. And on the Canada side, the biggest issue to me was where's the chance creation? Where are the goals at? You know, the outside backs I thought were lagging a bit against Australia as well. Caitlin Ford, Haley Rosso, those two able to get to the corners and make things happen and get crosses in. So when I look at Canada, I have to wonder, where was this, team that we saw in the Olympics? It seems so different. I even had one question from a writer that, how many players are different from the Olympics to now? Like, how much of a turnover? Because they're like, it seems like a lot. And I mean, there's some, but it was one of those that I had told you, I guess about a week ago, that I thought Canada was in danger of this happening. And I didn't think that it necessarily would, but it was something to keep an eye on. And now that it has, I'm saying they just didn't have the explosiveness on offense. It's the same thing as Australia without Sam Kerr and Mary Fowler, just not having the explosiveness. Canada, even at the strength that they did have, didn't have it. Christine Sinclair, I think, didn't play up to what she has in the past, but she's getting older, and they just need someone to step into that role of who's going to come and score 100+ international goals in their career. And I didn't see that in this World Cup, and I know it's hard to find, but I just didn't see the creation, the creativity, the offensive attacking form was never really there for them.
All right, Jarrett Smith now joining us. Luke Winstel is in Brisbane. Jarrett, we've been kind of breaking down a little bit of Australia and Canada and no more Canada and the rest of Group B. What's on your mind this morning?
No more Canada. I called some of Luke talking about it. I think it kind of hits in the, man, that's kind of surprise. But when we take a step back and look at it, and Luke, I know you're talking about some of the older players on this Canada squad. How surprised should we be? And, what's the road forward for them?
Yeah, number 7 team in the world. So if you look at the rankings, that was the one thing coming in that you say, wow, this is the group of death. And on paper, it's the group of death. And I think that Nigeria's coach talked about some of the matchups that they felt they were able to exploit throughout the group stages. And with Canada understanding, I think he talked about some of the spacing defensively and the way that they could space to really hold Canada scoreless. And some of the things that I've looked at tonight with Australia, it seemed like Canada was a step behind. They were a step slower. Their attacks were a step off the mark whenever they did get a shot. It was just not challenging Mackenzie Arnold as much until late in the game, but it was already lost at that point. And with Canada, in terms of the road forward, I'm not totally sure. I think some of the biggest things in the big picture, everyone talks about them getting a good domestic league and getting the pay agreements and getting some of the basic things that countries like Australia have and countries like United States have gotten to, and getting on that playing field in terms of the backing. I think that's what some people there would tell you and some of the things we've heard. But in terms of how surprised, I would say Nigeria was the team that I thought maybe they'd come out and tie somebody. I didn't see a win against the host country. I didn't see them, Coach Randy was talking about on the Nigeria side tonight, when they held Canada scoreless and had the draw, that was when their team, he felt, really started believing. So they hit that moment, and that seemed to propel them. With Australia, it was another matchup kind of thing that he saw with Australia's backline of the way they could attack that. So it seems like he's really found ways to get that team to play together. They've been winning in spite of the federation, and the talent's been successful in spite of challenges they've had. And because of that, it's been a really fun story to watch and a fun story to cover, and to see them play their final 2 games of the group stage in Brisbane has been really turned me into a bit of a believer. I don't know if they could beat a team like England, but I think there's the type of team that can give England a chance because of some of the contrasting styles that they might play.
Well, and let me ask you my next question this way. What's it been like for you to see either a debutante or an underdog make their presence felt in this World Cup? And it doesn't have to be just there in Brisbane. It could be when, you have that 7 seconds where you get to kind of put your feet up at your desk a little bit and sit there and enjoy a match, or make sure that you kick a goal in a third division AFL game, something like that. When you have time for yourself, what's it been like for you to see the world of women's soccer on the global stage get smaller because you're seeing teams get wins for the first time, get that first goal? Like we saw with Zambia today, getting a win over Costa Rica, getting that first win for them in tournament history. What's it been like for you to see these kinds of firsts and see the world get smaller?
One of the things that, even though I wasn't there, we were doing some remote coverage for AP when games were in Adelaide or Perth, and I had the game with Morocco getting their first Arab nation to win a Women's World Cup game. That was something that, a few firsts in that game as well. First points and having a chance to challenge in a group that has Colombia and Germany in it. And getting to see that was a good moment for me to say, I'm covering this and writing on this. And it's something that maybe 10 years ago never would have had a chance of happening. The field would have been smaller, wouldn't have been as many people involved. And it's clear the gap is closing. Everyone that's here has said that. And it's almost come to the point where, of the people that we've met in Brisbane and Sydney, it's just, that's the consensus of, okay, Haiti played England in a close game, Nigeria beat Australia. Like, these things are happening. There is the parity in the game now. And we're not even on a similar level yet in terms of funding and backing for a lot of these teams. And I think this World Cup can help get more of that going. But watching the quality of the product on the field, I think the difference of, you have those games that I grew up watching with USA where they beat a team, 8-0, or I think I remember an 11-0 a while ago. And those are not happening. Even when you think a team should be blown out of the water, you're not seeing it, because now you're looking at teams like Nigeria's got a couple of players that are in the Women's Super League. So they're playing the top players every week. And with the professional leagues growing and players playing the top players in the world on their club teams, and now Australia's got most of their players playing in Europe. So now they're playing for Man City, Real Madrid, those kinds of clubs that have the big names and the big games. That's growing it to the point where the quality across the board is something that you just flip on a random game. I'm sure that as a soccer fan, you'll be impressed. Like, a lot of these games have really been, okay, this fits the billing. It's fun to watch. You're not seeing a lot of 0-0s or games that are a little slower paced or harder to watch. So I've been impressed with that.
And then as far as, we get into, you talk about the difference in funding, but it seems like the difference in mentality has been really fun to watch, because we've seen Nigeria, Bam, who's one of our resident Australians, talks about, Nigeria playing with nothing to lose. Has there been a shift for you watching Australia in the way that they are, the way of approaching things mentally, or is just how they've been the entire tournament? Because it seemed really loose.
You mean for Nigeria or for Australia?
For both of them. Sorry,
okay,
especially Australia today. They seem really loose mentally.
So some of the best performances I've seen have been, there's been singing before them, if that makes, I'll explain. So Nigeria walks into the stadium. So Brooke today, this is a story since you guys know Brooke now. She came in and we were eating at this place, Caxton Hotel, really good chicken parmesan I've come to find.
There you go. Get your parmy.
Yeah. So we're eating, and then Brooke looks at her phone. She's like, "Oh, I got to go see the team walk in." And I'm like, I understand walk-ins and stuff, but at the World Cup, like I haven't seen reporters like, oh, we need to go watch him walk in. Like that hasn't been a thing. So I don't know what she's talking about. And I just kind of dismiss it. And then she's rushing and I'm like, I don't know what she's doing, but good luck, whatever. Well, she knows that the Nigerian team walks into the stadium singing and they have songs and cultures. And they have a prayer circle before they get started. So she wanted to go see that because she's covering some of the uniqueness of their team and the culture around it. And them having the singing and warm-ups, dancing around. If you follow their Twitter, you might see a 1-to-1 ratio between dance content and soccer content. I mean, really, they almost run it like a TikTok page. It's very, very cool the way that they do it. And I think it keeps them relaxed. They're in touch with whether it's their faith or their culture or their music. We've seen that with Brazil as well. They'll come in and start a practice singing, and they did that right before their big opening performance with the 4-0 win and the hat trick from Borges and those kinds of things. So the looseness of a team like Nigeria comes from they're just unafraid to be themselves and to bring their culture here and share their culture with their coaches as well, like with Brandy being from the United States. And seeing some of that, providing the looseness in Australia, tense early on. The players have admitted that in press conferences of feeling nervy and the different emotions that go through their head, hosting and having their friends and family and the whole community there. And it's impacted them. I think tonight was the first time that I felt like Australia really looked like themselves in front of that Melbourne crowd. So it seems like they've eased into that, which is good because I think they'll be heading back to Sydney and have another massive crowd there. So there's a difference. I think Australia's had to settle into it, but Nigeria really after that Canada game seemed like they were themselves and really good to go.
And they didn't need Sam Kerr in this one, which,
right.
You would think that, okay, it's Australia and you're getting gassed up. Therefore, it's a game that can decide your fate. And I know that everybody was playing it very, very coy. You're having your press conferences. Sam will be eligible, all these kinds of things. The gamesmanship that we see in other sports, you were getting that with the Sam Kerr availability. And as I was explaining in the open, it looked like Sam Kerr with her earphones in was ready to just do like the red laser daggers the entire time as she was sitting as they were looking at the cutaways from the TV side. You proved that you could do it. You could get through a group stage without Sam Kerr. You got to rest her for the 3 matches. And now as you lay things out, you're getting ready for the let me see what's the way it lays out. It's the runners up of Group D a week from today. And so, whenever Group D figures out what's going on there, you've got another 5 days or so where Sam Kerr can recover to get ready for the knockouts.
Yes. And when I try to contextualize for people, I'm pulling this up for you here.
It's visuals.
How important Sam Kerr is. Like you look at the official guide and whether Australia is the host country or not, Sam Kerr is going to be on the cover.
Right.
And then you also look at the FIFA game now that's been released. She's sharing the cover with Mbappe of just how important of a player. Because I had one person ask, like, why is everything that is mentioned Sam Kerr in a sentence, why is that newsworthy every time it's mentioned? And I'm like, because that's what she is. She is that caliber of player. That's why you see so many TV cutaways. So if you don't understand, Sam Kerr and what she is, leading scorer in, multiple different club leagues and Women's Super League with Chelsea. And when you look at her, the way that it went, I told you last time I was on, I said, give me until 1:00 and I can tell you a little more because they randomly texted us at 7:00 the night before in the WhatsApp and said, we're going to do a press conference and just be ready and send us a couple of names. And I was like, those might be the 2 best players on the team, Ellie Carpenter and Sam Kerr. And thankfully they gave us Sam Kerr first. So then Ellie Carpenter didn't have to answer all the Sam Kerr questions. So Sam Kerr, I've never seen anything like this. They moved the press conference up 30 minutes out of nowhere with barely any advance. So there's this caravan of Ubers. We were on the bus and then we got to get an Uber. We got to get there faster. We can't be stopping because they moved it up and we had like a 15-minute buffer. And it was like, oh gosh, what are we doing? Because everybody, had found out on such late notice and caravan of Ubers, about 5-6 Ubers lined up. Everybody's jumping out and we're running and got the camera bags and we get in the presser and they say, we're going to try to hold her as long as we can to get everybody in here. They held about 15 more minutes. Sam Kerr walks in. I've never seen when a player walks up to the stage, I've never seen the cameras already snapping before they're on stage. But it was almost like walking walking a queen on stage or something. As soon as she steps past the curtain, it's flashing, it's shooting, it's Sam Kerr. The place is packed out. If you didn't get there early, you might not have had a seat in the press conference. And it's a big room. It's ready for the World Cup, for the media corps at the Women's World Cup for the host country. So she walks up on stage. First question, we thought we were going to get something from Ann, who's the, I guess you call it press officer. Sam will not be able to play, or Sam will be able to play. And now we'll take questions. She didn't give any opening statement. She says, this is Sam Kerr. Doesn't really need an introduction. And then go ahead. They give the question. Sam, are you going to be available? Yeah, I'm going to be there. And then all of us are like looking at each other. I wish I had a GoPro to capture the looks of everybody. Because, -2 calling the presser, we're saying, this has got to be saying she's unavailable to avoid the questions and the distractions and move on. And it was the total opposite. So we're looking at each other, and a couple of people are told you so. And some of that, always get that. And then there were multiple times, Sam, what does available mean? And, just to confirm, are you in boots, or are you training right now? Or were you with the team, away from the team? Trying to get all these specifications. And I don't think I realized how many meanings the word available has until this week. Because available, what does that mean? And I think immediately we assume available means that, they might run her out there. They're going to run her out there, but it doesn't. So we learned a lot, and they didn't need her tonight. There's no reason to use her if they didn't need her, and they sure didn't.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So that was a whirlwind of a entire day, because as soon as it happens, I had 2 stories on my screen. One is Sam Kerr is going, Sam Kerr is not going. And publishing live, Ellie Carpenter comes in, get a few more quotes. Then by the end of the hour, we've got the full, expanded details out. And I, take a deep breath, and then we go and cover the Brazil game that night. And wild day, but that's something that, it's a unique experience for sure.
Jared, go for it.
And I want to ask about one of the other countries going home, with Ireland drawing in the final game and missing out on getting to the groups. What's and this is a question as well for your roommate. I know you may be drowning in sorrows after that, but what's kind of the 30,000-foot view of Ireland after this, where it felt like they put in some damn good fights? It's a tough group to get out of.
It is. In terms of observations personally on Ireland, I don't think they had the explosion in the attack. I didn't see maybe the end. So the end of the Australia game, I said, wow, this team seemed like they're going to score. And then there was a moment in the Canada game. We had the Olympico from Katie McCabe. There was maybe one other moment where I said, this team's going to score. Outside of that, there was not a lot of those moments. They didn't really threaten. They didn't get forward as a group and transition quickly like you would need to in a World Cup match. And with Ireland, credit to them defensively. I think a lot of their best players have been defenders, and some of their top subs are able to help and boost on that end. But talking to head coach Vera Pauw, her press conference was also refreshing and very interesting, and a little bit confrontational with 1 or 2 reporters tonight, because there are some questions around what's going on with her contract. Will she be back? What does that mean for the future of Ireland's program? And from what she said, sounded like she wants to be back. She's planning on being back. And then when you look at what's moving ahead for them, they said, okay, we're glad to get the first point, glad to be here, glad to prove that they'll be competitive. They were competitive with every team in the group of death, and they take that forward, but also knowing that there was a chance to achieve more. There was a chance to draw with Australia, or maybe even draw with Canada if you didn't have the own goal. So those kinds of things of understanding that, and also saying that the difference that Coach Pauw talked about was a lot of the clubs, a lot of the teams they're playing against have players that are playing for women's Super League clubs, and a lot of their players, if not all of their starters, are. And that's something for Ireland that's not there yet, or in WSL as well. They don't have as much of that, so lacking the depth, lacking the attacking prowess. Those are the things that are next for them, but also a little bit of continuing to recruit and build their talent base, as well as now they've established themselves as a contender at this level. So
All right.
it's a positive.
Okay. Do you have liquid next to you? Because
I don't. I'm starting to lose it, but I should be okay.
dude, you gotta get liquid.
Empty.
You've got to
It's empty.
look. You've got to make sure. You got to make sure that you are completely prepared for these situations, because when you're a guest for 20 to 30 minutes on a program, you have to make sure that you're properly hydrated for these situations. See,
Well, you remember that big bottle I had the other night?
yeah.
Yeah, so I left it right here, and when the housekeepers came, I guess they thought I wasn't using it anymore. So my favorite huge bottle of water is now gone.
Man.
So now I got this little water bottle as a little giveaway as we were walking through one of the events, but there's just nothing in it.
You've got to be properly hydrated for being a guest in these segments. Back to the
one of those Foster's tall boys that they always advertised in the early '90s. The one you could beat a mule to death with.
Yes, the one that was about a foot tall and about that big around. Those are the Foster's tall boys. To your idea about breaking news and available in Sam Kerr. I mean, it's when you have an icon, and Bam mentions that Sam Kerr is a greater sports person than her brother Daniel, who played in 220 AFL matches. When you have someone like that, I mean, all you need to do, and this is part of the gamesmanship of a tournament, where if you have someone who you don't know if you don't know what their percentage is, you don't know from a scale of 1 to 5, or, are they a 3, or are they, whatever. The fact that all you got to do, literally, if you're Sam Kerr, all you've got to do in that press conference is sit there and say, I'm available. And then what that causes, the opposition has to prepare for Sam Kerr. Instead of Sam Kerr sitting there saying, I don't know, Sam Kerr being confident in that moment is all a part of that gamesmanship for the last match day, because it's that much more work that Bev Priestman and Canada have to do to prepare. And yes, I know in the end it was a blowout, it was blowout city for Australia, but it still means that you've got to do that much more work. You've got to prepare for that possible eventuality that Sam Kerr might be dropping in there. So it was, at the very least, it was good gamesmanship. But once again, you're not going to tell an icon no.
Yeah. And that's what it sounded like at the press conference we had after the Nigeria game Thursday night, of if Sam wanted to go, that was going to be a decision with her and the medical trainers, and they were going to tell Tony how many minutes she could go. And that was the process that we were told about. And it seemed like, the consensus of the reporters that I'd talked to that cover this beat really day to day, year round, or, throughout the past few years now, saying probably 65th minute, somewhere, give or take a few, is what it felt like it would be. Come in, get the crowd going crazy, breath of air. Every time she touches the ball, people are going to cheer. Yeah. And just understanding the boost of, even if she doesn't score, it's going to attract so much, and she'll be able to play, a good 30 or so. And that seemed like the consensus of what we could get. But when you're already up 2-0 or 3-0 at that point, you say, well, let's not risk it. And there was some talk of, do you put her in for a couple of minutes to get her game ready? And it's just, there's no need. And Coach Tony Gustafsson is one that he understands how to utilize the media and what happens, and going through, and with Sam Kerr the night before the opening match and the whole debacle there. And I think some of the reporters here are still a little sour about how that went down, of just trotting out for the press conference, even though, she can't play, or there was some thought that she couldn't play, and those kinds of things. And with Canada coming in and doing the act, and they understand how to do things. I don't want to say use the media. That doesn't sound right, but just understanding how to play whatever cards they need to play to do what they need to do. So it's a credit to them. And I think, Coach Tony Gustafsson, there was a chance that he wasn't going to survive if they lost tonight to Canada, in terms of, his role and his staff. There's chatter about that. And was he the right guy the whole time? And I think some of that is silenced, and now they move on in this round of 16, and things stay interesting here in the home country.
Jarrett, go for it.
Yeah, things do stay interesting, because what are your expectations for Australia in the next round? I guess I know that's a very broad question, but After getting through this, and it's an emotional game, it's an emotional couple days, especially with you talking about the press conference. What are your expectations for Australia in that knockout round?
Yeah, it's a lot. And then also with that press conference, I think on the MD-1, where we get head coach Tony Gustafsson, we don't talk to the head coach throughout the week. It's only really MD-1s. That's what the trend has been. So with him, he talks, and they brought out Emily von Egmond, and she's one that is not really known for saying a whole lot. She'll compliment players and stuff. So they kind of went a little quieter there in the press conference. So you had the big MD-2, a little quieter MD-1. Then you go into match day. And for Australia going forward, where does this go? This goes to the point of, presumably, if Sam Kerr was good enough to play some minutes tonight, there's going to be questions of, hey, will she be good enough in a few days to play more minutes or a whole half or to start? And that'll be some of where the media begins the storylines going forward. In terms of advancement, Australia has shown that they can do this against the top 10 FIFA ranked teams. So there's the expectation that they'd move on coming into the tournament, top 5 in the betting odds, and a lot of the sports books Australia was. So looking at that, you'd say semifinals is probably a best case scenario. The way I see it, I don't think they're the type of team that will make a run to the title match. But I think semifinals would be the ceiling, and then round of 16 would still be a bit disappointing because now they've won the group. So the expectation would be to win that. It would be disappointing to go out in the round of 16, but not a tragedy that would have been the group stage. I would say the quarterfinal is one that people say, okay, that's fine. And semifinal, I think, is about as good as it would get for this Australia team, just because, not a knock on them, but just the fact that depending on where you land in the bracket, and we're starting to get some of those things settled in, you might be on the side with, I think it might be US and Sweden, depending on how those groups could go. So it's not going to be easy, and it wasn't going to be on either side, but just those two opponents being tough matchups for Australia and teams that they've lost to in friendlies in the past couple of years. That's, to me, a semifinal, I think, is a good hoping point for Australia, I guess. That's what you could hope for.
All right, so what's the rest of your week looking like?
Good question. We've got tomorrow is a little more relaxed during here we go. We've got the media schedule.
Hang on. I've got to do this appropriately. So, I mean, since you've got the media schedule, hang on just a second. Let me give it the
appropriate. Oh goodness. They just sent it.
All right. Media schedule. Hit it.
That was a lot. So now we get into knockout stage media schedule. This is from the Australia site. We've got travel and recovery day tomorrow, so I won't have to do any press conferences tomorrow. So now I know that for a fact. There's no MD-1s in Brisbane. The team looks like is headed to Sydney on August 4th, and there's going to be likely some availability in between then. So any Australian press conference between now and when they leave for Sydney on the 4th is going to be, I'll cover that. And then we'll have South Korea, Germany on August 3rd. The MD-1 before that, I'll be covering the Germany side of the press conferences and all the festivities with Taft. And tomorrow is, I've taken it backwards here with the schedule. Tomorrow I am headed to, we've got a team lunch, which is always fun.
Okay.
I have to pay for that. And then
save your receipts, brother. That's all I can tell you.
I know, that's going to be a good one. And after that, we're going to go and watch the USA game as a group. And then I've got game coverage tomorrow night in Perth. I've got Denmark's game tomorrow. So I'll be remote coverage covering from Brisbane, but it's a match in Perth. And I'll be doing a little behind the scenes video about how all of that works and, how do you try to adequately cover something. And it takes a team. We'll have me and then a live editor watch it at the same time, talking things over. What's our storyline? What does it mean? How do we turn this into something? And got very lucky with the last remote gamer having Morocco make history. And that turned into, instead of, here's an assignment to do on your Sunday afternoon, it turned into something that had a little bit of a significance to it. So really enjoyed it and hoping for another good one tomorrow covering that Perth one.
Well, as our de facto producer in Australia, in addition to being a guest, the 9:05 leadoff slot is yours however many times you want it for the remainder of the time that you have there in Australia. When are you supposed to be heading back this way?
We'll be headed back probably August 5th. There's some talk about which date specifically in August, but it'll probably be headed back on the 5th. And then if AP wants anything remote, we'll be glad to help out from the States. But I think for now, that'll be pretty much our role, the group stage, and trying to help out with all the craziness that we've had so far.
All right, so Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday morning, 9:05s or 11:05 p.m. your time. You, and since it's your last 4 days in that environment, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you now. You can turn it into as big a party line as you want. That 9:05, 11:05 segment is yours. Just bring in as many folks as you want to discuss whatever you want from 9:05 until whenever. Like I said, you have been fantastic down there for us, covering the Women's World Cup and dropping in with friends and things like that. And that's what we've wanted, just to have a big community here to discuss Women's World Cup. And the fact that you guys are down there for the University of Georgia is fantastic. It is now officially 12:40 at night, yeah?
Goodness. Yeah, but, working the games, you get all amped up. So it's not like I was really going to bed anytime soon anyways.
All right. Well, thanks for hanging out with us as you always do and being there in hour number 2. So go get hydrated and make sure that the cleaning crews do not take things that belong to you where you can stay properly hydrated, sir.
They didn't take it. I think they threw it away because they thought it was trash. But it was
therefore they took it.
I guess. I just don't want them to sound like it looks bad or anything. No, they're really cool here.
All right. So, like I said, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday nights, your time, daylight hour time, they're yours. Make them whatever segments you want. Bring on as many friends as you want. We'll wrap up the group stage as best we can when it comes to everything there. At Luke Winstel on the Twitters. Luke, go get hydrated. We'll catch up with you soon, my friend.
Thank you for having me. Enjoy the rest of your day.
All right, Luke Winstel. He is in Brisbane, by the way, and it's been fun. It's been fun. Like I said, Jason, Jess, and I have worked with Luke doing college athletics. And so for Luke to get this opportunity just in time for him to return home, just in time for a high school football season, it's going to be Luke's probably going to have to figure out how to sleep on a plane. But no, that was fun, and it's always fun. So it's been fun. So Bam, good night at 12:40. Thanks for hanging out with us as you always do. So head back on the 5th, arrive on the 6th or the 7th or whatever. Bam and all of his suggestions for Taft and Luke and everybody are quite hilarious. You can go ahead and follow Luke Winstel on the Gram or the IG, whatever the kids call it. You get to see the video of him trying to kick a goal in an AFL format, which I thought was pretty funny. And the fact that he's getting to learn about all those kinds of things, an experience that you can carry with you forever. And like I said, it's been great to have Luke on. Great to introduce us to Taft and to Brooke and everybody down there. So for the remainder of the week, since he's going to be down there for the in-person in the remainder of the group stage that he's down there for, obviously we'll have him on as much as possible, and we'll talk stuff. That's the official term. All right. So speaking of stuff, what's on TV today? We get into that in gossip, rumor, and innuendo coming up in just a little bit. All right. So on TV today, we've already had the early stuff. Gold TV, and we get to promote our friends at Fanatis, fntz.co/soccer down here. Helps out the network, helps out the show, helps you out to watch things like the Peruvian Primera. Day-night doubleheader on Gold TV, 2 o'clock and 9:30. Telemundo had your simulcasting of the World Cup. Leagues Cup tonight. We'll get into the juice boxes there. Leagues Cup, Guadalajara, Chivas, and Sporting is at 10 o'clock. That's on Tuda NA and Unimas. Season Pass has America and Crew at 8, Puebla Fire at 8:30 on the free side of Apple TV, Toluca and Rapids at 9:30, and Chivas and Sporting is on the free side of Season Pass. That one's also at 10 o'clock. Red Bulls 2 and OCB, a big game in the Eastern Conference and Next Pro. That's at 7 o'clock tonight. Paramount Plus has 2 games in the Argentine Primera. Patronato Boca Juniors is at 5. River Plate Sarmiento at 7:30. Brasileiro at 3 o'clock, a doubleheader. Atletico Paranaense and Sao Paulo FC. and Internacional and Atletico Mineiro. No word on whether or not James has actually made his way to Sao Paulo FC yet. Last time we saw he was on a plane heading that way, so we'll see. But Peacock also had your all 4 of your matches as a part of what was going on today, and they will do that again tomorrow. Early morning tomorrow, once again, Big Fox. We'll have Portugal and the U.S. at 3 a.m., China and England at 7. FS1 will be your simulcaster for Vietnam and the Netherlands at 3, Haiti and Denmark at 7. Also, Telemundo will be Portugal, U.S., China, England, Universo, Vietnam, Netherlands, Haiti, Denmark, and Peacock will have all 4 of those matches as well. So that's your primer for the competition that is going on. Abby, it's a road game. It's in Chicago, so it's going to be in Bridgeview. So it's a road game this time. The next home match is not until another week, and we don't know an answer on that one yet. So this next one is a road game in Chicago against Fire 2. It's a big match for them on the road. Looking at the juice boxes for that's right, we were doing Leagues Cup. That's where we were. It's like I'm getting everything all kind of all over the place here. So how are we phrasing it according to there we go, North and Central America? I did too, Abby. Actually, I had it written initially as a home match, but no, it's in Bridgeview and it's on Thursday. We'll have that one for you on the network Thursday night. Juice boxes tonight for Leagues Cup. 8 o'clock, Club America and Crew. Basically, they're threw a blanket over the whole thing within the margin of error. Both teams basically anywhere from 140 plus 147 to 150. Your 90-minute draws a plus 273. Puebla and Fire. Chicago is a plus 117. Your draw is a plus 252. Puebla is a plus 206. Toluca is a favorite against Colorado Rapids. Toluca at a plus 143. Your draw is a plus 257. The Rapids are a plus 165. Chivas and Sporting Kansas City. Chivas is a plus 163. Your draw is a plus 261. Sporting Kansas City is a plus 144. So that's what you're looking at with that. USL Championship doesn't have anything going on for another couple of days. The NWSL Challenge Cup, that's not taking place until next weekend. We mentioned the one match in MLS Next Pro tonight. Red Bulls 2 at Montclair are a decided favorite at a plus 110. Draws a plus 285, and OCB is a plus 184. For those of you that missed it, on Friday night after the weather cleared, Columbus Crew 2-0 winners over Atlanta United 2. And so Atlanta United has to turn that one around on the road. And it's getting crowded in division, and it's getting crowded in the conference behind Crown Legacy, and that's going to be a massive game when it comes to laying things out in the playoff picture. So we'll see how we'll catch up with the coaching staff and the players, and we'll have that for you in the pregame show. So Thursday night from Bridgeview, Atlanta United 2 and Chicago Fire. Jason will have the call. I'll have the pregame for you in the halftime. And when we know the broadcast times, we'll let you know. But, yeah, next game for the Twos is in Bridgeview later on this week. So that's what we're looking at from there. August 9th at home against Crown Legacy, and then the one home game in August, because once again, everything's transitioning to football season there at the Fraction. Then 2 in September unless you make the playoffs, and it depends on seeding at that point there as well. David, on the overnight with Jess and Jason, the Power Talk came back out. Brought back memories. Kicking it with power. Power! Kicking it with power. That's what you need to do. Let's see. Gossip, rumor, and innuendo, and things left unsaid. Obviously, we'll get into the gossip and who's moving where and who ain't moving and who might be going and who's not going. So here's how it's laid out. Arsenal are now exploring a deal to sign David Raya from Brentford. And it appears, on the flip side of that, Nottingham Forest has trimmed their goalie search to 2, and they're only going to pick one of either Matt Turner or Dean Henderson. And if they pick up Matt Turner from Arsenal, it would be on a permanent transfer. So we'll keep an eye on that. With the Brentford did sign other keepers, but if David Raya goes, then that'll free up some revenue for them. Matt Turner, if he's picked up from Arsenal, would be a permanent transfer, so we'll keep an eye on that. Bayern Munich also set to step up their efforts to sign David Raya after having a loan offer rejected. Chelsea are attempting to negotiate a cash plus player deal to bring Kylian Mbappe to Stamford Bridge. Good luck on that. PSG are expecting Real Madrid to make a, quote, extremely low and insulting late offer for Mbappe, according to our friends at RMC Sport. Barcelona forward Ousmane Dembele has agreed to join PSG, with the Ligue 1 champs prepared to activate the 26-year-old France international's €50 million release clause. That's from our friend Fabrizio Romano. Al-Ahly want to sign Fiorentina midfielder Sofiane Amrabat, who's also a target for Manchester United. That comes from our friends at L'Equipe. Manchester United England forward Marcus Rashford said he's considered leaving the club before Erik ten Hag arrived last summer. That's from our friends at The Guardian. Senegalese winger Sadio Mane expected to have a medical with Al Nassr on Monday after they agreed to the £24 million deal to sign him from Bayern. Chelsea are confident they can win the race to sign forward Michael Olise from Crystal Palace. They're also interested in Brighton keeper Robert Sanchez, with Blues boss Mauricio Pochettino having given the go-ahead for the club to make a move for the 25-year-old. That is from the four-letter paper, so keep the information, take the information at your own peril. Luis Suarez has agreed to terminate his contract with Gremio this December, with Inter Miami keen on signing the 36-year-old. You remember in social media where Luis Suarez basically said, Leo and I, we want to retire together. So once again, all of this stuff, bringing in the younger players that we saw in addition to Jordi Alba, who is set to be introduced this week. So Messi, Busquets, Alba now. The knock-on effects of signing the younger players, which is also key to this. You signed the one U22, and because you've got your DPs all squared away, you can't do any more this year. But keep an eye on the other players who are coming inbound after this season. Once again, Luis Suarez could be coming in next year, and it'll be Messi and friends like never before. But Luis Suarez not happening this year. According to Fabrizio Romano, agreed to terminate the contract with Gremio in December so he can sign with Inter Miami. How much of an NIL deal will that be? That's the big question. Yeah, Hutch, imagine the mentoring in Miami for the younger players now. There's a comment in there about biting for Luis Suarez come January. So we'll keep an eye on that. Manchester City confident they'll complete a deal for RB Leipzig center back Josko Vardiol before the summer window shuts. Crystal Palace closing in on a deal for Flamengo's midfielder, the 19-year-old Mateus Franca, from Fabrizio Romano. Four-letter paper says Spurs and Spain fullback Sergio Reguilon have emerged as a target for Real Sociedad. Arsenal are keen to sign 22-year-old Ghanaian attacking midfielder Mohamed Kudus from Ajax. Arsenal have also expressed interest in Napoli and Georgian attacker Kavica Kvaratskhelia. That's from our friends at Football Transfers. Nottingham Forest considering making a move for Matt Turner. We talked about that. Wolves preparing a third and final offer for Alex Scott, the 19-year-old from Bristol City, after having bids of 18 and 20 million rejected from our friends at Give Me Sport. Will, how can we compete with star after star after star? I struggle to see our direction anymore. Don't compete with star after star after star. That's not how this goes. We'll let Atlanta United do things Atlanta United way. Don't get bogged down in what everybody else is doing. Inter Messi CF wants to do things that way. If Jorge Mas wants to drop $9 gazillion on dudes who are over 30 that are going to give him short-term gain, if that's what he envisions as his levels of success, first and foremost, they got to fix their defense. You're investing in 30-somethings. And in this short term this year, you're in a home stretch. You're chasing after a Open Cup title, bids in CONCACAF Champions League, all that kind of stuff. They're going to build things their way. Atlanta United is going to build things with their academy. They're going to bring in talented players over the top see Yorgos Yakamakis, and they're going to build that way. I mean, you've got Caleb Wiley, you've got Noah Cobb, you've got a combination brought to you. Brooks Lennon, Yakamakis, etc. Jay Fortune. You're building through your academy and you're bringing in talented players. You're doing it from the bottom and from the top. Don't get bogged down in how other folks want to build. And if you want to look at Inter Miami specifically, like I said, this season, because it is a short-term sprint, I think the results for Inter Miami, it's going to look good in the short term, but I don't think it's going to help them in the long term. I just don't. Like I said, they got to fix their defense first and foremost. And the fact that they've got injuries and the fact that they're porous, legitimately for me, Will, the play for Inter Miami is the over. This season, for the rest of their matches, take the over. Doesn't matter what it is. Take the over. They're going to give up a lot of goals. And the pressure is going to be on those 30-somethings, especially late in the year with schedule compression and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's going to be up to trying to figure out how they manage schedule compression. I mean, here's what I'm talking about. Let's get into this real quick. All right, so this is outside of Leagues Cup. This is outside of Leagues Cup. This is their sprint in. This is Inter Miami. On the 20th, regular season game at home against Charlotte. 3 days later, which basically means play on the 20th, recovery day on the 21st, probably flying to Cincinnati the 22nd, playing the Open Cup semi, I think that's where they are, against Cincinnati in Open Cup. 3 days later, you're back to playing Major League Soccer. You're going to Red Bull Arena to take on Red Bulls, obviously, on the 26th. Then you go home on the 30th, and you host Nashville at home. So from August the 20th to August the 30th, I'm going to count the days just to make sure that my numbers aren't wrong. August 20, 2, 4, 6, 7, 11. You've got 11 days, just as an example. Two separate competitions, 11 days, 4 matches. Do you think those 30-somethings are going to be in all 4 of those matches for all 90 minutes each time? They're not going to put in 360 minutes. They've got to choose what they want to do. You know that they're going to go all in for Leagues Cup in Cincinnati, for Open Cup in Cincinnati. And we also don't know how far they're going to be going in Leagues Cup. How much of a drain is this schedule going to be on those 30-somethings legs? 4 matches, 11 days, 2 separate competitions. That's just the month of August. Then 5 matches in 14 days because they have to go from home on the 30th, playing in the midweek, as I turn pages here, to playing Sunday night. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's 5 matches in 15 days. 5 matches in 15 days for Inter Miami. And they're not going to play all 450 minutes. Those 3 guys are not going to play all 450 minutes. There will be more than moments. There'll be matches where they will be exposed. There are matches where Tata Martino is going to have to make a choice. How do I lay this out? 5 matches in 15 days, that's test number 1. Then they finally get 6 days off. Then later in the month in September, 3-game stretch in 8 days, 9. Atlanta here, midweek at home to Toronto, Then you've got a rivalry game in Orlando on the 24th. 3 and 9 days there. Then, to end September, you've got a game on the 30th at home against NYC. On the 4th, you turn around and play Chicago in Chicago, where apparently Soldier Field is going to be a sellout. Soldier Field, a sellout for Lionel Messi. Then 3 days later, you come back home to play Cincinnati next to last match of the regular season. Then that in-between weekend, I believe, would be Open Cup final if you make it past Cincinnati. And then you play Charlotte last day of the regular season in Charlotte. There's a lot of decisions they're going to have to make. Biggest decision is how they're going to juggle the struggle. That's the biggest thing for me when it comes to Inter Messi CF. Don't compare yourself to other people. Be the first you. Don't be the second so-and-so. Atlanta United builds their things a certain way. Let Miami do Miami things. If it turns into a financial boondoggle for the Moss family, that's the Moss family's problem. Don't sweat it. So that's where I'm staring at what's going on when it comes to all of our friends that surround us when it comes to all of the activity and who goes where and who's doing what. Just focus on yourself. Required reading today in the Guardian, and once again, I would recommend that you subscribe to things and help the Guardian out. Fantastic stories in journalism. Nick Ames is in Bolu and Antakya, Turkey. And he spent some time with Hatayspor, team that finished last in the Turkish Super League last year, understandably so. But it's all about their rebuild. And so he spent some time there in Hatayspor. So that is the required reading for the day. It's and I'll post that here in the Twitch pitch. So, and so there that is. Post-match after Canada's World Cup loss, Sophie Schmidt gutted, heartbroken. I feel really terrible. I feel like we let down Canadians who watched that game. Australia came out strong, executed their game plan perfectly. They built momentum. Canada's worst finish at the Women's World Cup since it went winless in 2011 and finished last. Likely also the Canadian women's worst game in recent years. Canada failed to put a shot on target in the first half. Christine Sinclair, who came off the bench last Wednesday over Ireland, returned to the starting lineup, only lasted a half. And that's the other question in all of this. Is this the end for Christine Sinclair? World's all-time leading scorer, 40 years young. Is this it for Christine Sinclair? And think about what she has meant to women's sports, not just women's soccer, but women's sports and sports in general in Canada. Gianni Infantino was in the house at AAMI Park, Melbourne Rectangular. Rosso's leaving Manchester City for Real Madrid after this. 4 changes for Bev Priestman to start the second half. Didn't really work. Much of the pregame talk from Gustafsson calling the game a crossroads moment, focused on the health of Sam Kerr. We talked about that with Luke Winstel. Canadian question marks were Sinclair and Buchanan. Buchanan, dealing with an illness, exited late in the first half of the Ireland game. So there's the one quote in the mixed zone, but the future of Christine Sinclair. That's the big question out of all of that. Once again, looking at, before we go, let's get into other gossip, rumor, and innuendo that I might have missed with that. But yeah, the talk about Matt Turner, keep an eye on that when it comes to Nottingham Forest, wanting Matt Turner to cherish for real. Bayern's ready to break their transfer record, according to our friends at Sky, as execs are meeting Daniel Levy. Bayern's record transfer is the €80 million they paid for Lucas Hernandez back in 2019, prepared to pay more than that for Kane, even though he has only 12 months left on his deal. Sky Germany say Bayern chief exec Jan Christian Dresen and TD Eric Neppe flew to London this morning for talks with Daniel Levy. Sky Germany believe Bayern are confident Kane will be playing for them next season. Sadio Mane leaving for Al Nassr for $30 million will help finance any move for Kane. His £250,000 a week wage can also be reinvested, meaning Mane's, into a new forward. Brendan Rodgers also had his pieces of interviews, how the recruitment process is working at Celtic, confirming there'll be no more incoming, says there'll be no 15 to 20 million pound signings. Al Hilal have made an offer worth €140 million to Napoli for Victor Osimhen. It's thought Napoli would want more than 150 to even consider selling. Told the wages on offer for Osimhen are in the region of £1 million a week. Napoli president Aurelio De Laurentiis was asked about the progress of a new contract last month. He said, "We have a basic agreement on a 2-year extension, willing to consider an offer we could not refuse." We mentioned PSG in talks for Ousmane Dembele, €50 million release clause, €50 million release clause, which doubles after midnight tonight. So 8 hours away. Keep an eye on that. Barcelona want Dembele to stay, signed a new 2-year deal last summer, €50 million release clause for this month, stands to get 50% of the fee if he moves. So we'll keep an eye on that. Talks on Dean Henderson as an example over Matt Turner are a loan with an obligation to buy. So once again, we'll keep an eye on that difference. Sheffield United advanced talks with Arsenal over Austin Trusty. Player is yet to undergo. Abby, have a good day. We'll see you tomorrow. Player yet to undergo a medical for the Blades. Sky understands a fee in the region of £5 million has been agreed. Trusty expected to travel to Sheffield to have a medical incoming once the deal is finalized. West Ham still in the market for midfielders. Talks have been held throughout the window with Juve for Denny Zakaria. However, no agreement on a fee, and West Ham looking seriously at other options, including Monaco's Yusuf Fofana and Edson Alvarez of Ajax. They've yet to go back in for Conor Gallagher, having had a £40 million bid rejected. Understood to be reluctant to go any higher. Joao Palhinha still an option from Fulham, but a potential move has been complicated by his shoulder injury and Fulham's asking price. Initial talks with Manchester United indicated a move for Scott McTominay could prove out of West Ham's range. They've also improved their bid on James Ward-Prowse. Had a bid worth $20 million rejected earlier this month. Max Vober is leaving Leeds, joining Borussia Mönchengladbach on loan until the end of this season. 19 appearances across all comps. Defender now heads to the Bundesliga. Second bid for Romeo Lavia said to be sent soon by Liverpool in the region of £45 million in the package. Ready since last week, sent soon. 42.5 guaranteed, 2.5 add-ons up to 45 for Romeo Lavia. So Romeo Lavia is worth 45. James Ward-Prowse is worth half that. Okay. Crystal Palace in advanced talks on Mateus Franca. Palace having agreed to the £26 million fee with Flamengo. So that's where we are with all the conversations there. Thanks to everybody who's been hanging out with us. And as always, thanks to Luke Winstel and everybody who was a part of all of this. Tomorrow, and this is the other stuff that we're chasing this week, we're getting into the finals of USL League 2. Our friends at Lionsbridge are in there. They're going to have to travel to Washington State to take on Ballard. Ballard won, beat Flint City. Took a while. Went to PKs. Lionsbridge beat Villages last night late. So Lionsbridge traveling to Ballard this week for the USL League 2 final. Also, news, Riley Jackson signing with the North Carolina Courage. Great news for the Roswell, Georgia product. That was broken out earlier this week. And in the NPSL title is Apotheos and Tulsa Athletic. And it will be in Tulsa at Rogers State this weekend. We're going to try to track down our friends from Tulsa Athletic and talk T-Town Soccer and see if we can catch up with folks from Apotheos, too. So you have a team here in the footprint chasing after a national title in the NPSL. Apotheos at Tulsa this weekend. Lions Bridge at Ballard FC for the USL League 2 title. We'll be tracking that stuff all week long. Remember, we've got Atlanta United 2 Thursday in Chicago in Bridgeview. We'll have that on the network times 15 minutes before kick. It will be the kickoff of our coverage. Hang on just a second. Let me just make sure that I don't mess it up. I want to get it right. So in addition to the match tonight that's going on in MLS Next Pro, later this week, it is July 31 through August 6th. That's what we're trying to get to. It gives you the wrong page. 7 o'clock at SeatGeek in Bridgeview. 6:45 pregame Eastern time. 7 o'clock kick, 7:03 kick. Jason will have the call. I'll have your pre and your half. So remember, that match got slid. It was supposed to be Friday, got slid to Thursday. So we'll let you know what's going on there. Catch up with the twos and get you ready for that one on MLS Season Pass. It'll be part of a very, very busy weekend when it comes to everything going on in Major League Soccer and here in the footprint. So we'll have it all for you. Thanks to Luke Winstel once again joining us from Brisbane. And thanks to all of you guys for hanging out with us as we go. Back at it again, 9:05 tomorrow morning, where we try to break down as much as humanly possible in the world of soccer for everybody here at SDH. Thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks to you guys in the Twitch pitch and those of you who join us on every social media platform that we're on. You can listen to the show replay on the app, SDH app, available at the Google Play Store, and then go to Spreaker, our parent holder of our signal on the iPhone side, and you can get things that way as well. So Spreaker, Soccer Down Here search on the iPhone side, SDH app and the Google Play Store on the Android side. So for everybody here at SDH, thanks to Luke Winstel, thanks to you for hanging out. Because it's the end of the show, you know what that means. I get to do this. We'll be back at it again. Play it safe, everybody. Again, tomorrow morning at 9:05, when we talk about stuff. That's the official term. See you later.